What if I told you that losing fat was as simple as just going outside and getting your steps in? Now, you'd be surprised exactly how easy this is to implement, but here's the thing. Some stuff that is the easiest to implement is not actually easy. You know, there's a good saying, easy to do, easy not to do. So in today's video, we're gonna look at exactly how many steps you need to be getting in, and based on how many steps you get in and how that's driving your activity levels, exactly what you could be looking at in terms of overall fat loss per week. So you're definitely gonna wanna stay tuned and watch the rest of this video. So I'm back in the studio now, so let's break this video down. Last year I did a transformation. This was the result that I got. Now, during this time, it took me about 12 weeks to diet down to this, and I didn't use any type of cardio besides walking, which once again, I don't personally consider walking to be a form of cardio. Now, for many of my clients, I've used this same type of technique before, where you're just looking at getting a certain step count to reach your total calories burned. Now, when it comes to losing fat, the most important thing is to remember that you're in a calorie deficit. Now, sometimes just decreasing your food is not enough because hell, if you're like me, I love food. And the last thing that I want to do is keep dropping my calories. So what I like to do when I'm dieting is instead of dropping my calories lower and lower, I like to just increase my step count just a little bit to add towards that calorie burned each and every day. So this is something that you guys can implement because it's very easy and it's not intense. So when we look at cardio and we look at some of these, what I call myths around it, a lot of us think that we have to do intense forms of cardio such as running or high intensity interval training to lose fat. And that's not the case. And you'll see a lot of people ask the question, should I do steady state cardio? Should I do high intensity cardio? What type of cardio works the best for fat? And this whole debate is really meaningless because it's not necessarily about which one is the most effective for fat loss. It's really about which one can you stick with the longest to get you to your result. And so, you hear a lot of people be very dogmatic in this approach where only steady state cardio is the thing that'll get you fat loss, or only high intensity will get you fat loss, or you'll hear people that say things like running makes you fat, or whatever it is. And what I'm here to tell you today is the same thing is true when it comes to dieting. The best diet is the one that you can stick with, and the best form of cardio is the same exact thing. It's the one that you can stick with long enough. So if we know that 10,000 steps burns roughly 500 calories, the question is really how are you getting those calories? So if you were to run to burn those calories, sure, you hit that calorie goal. Now it might take you a lot less time to accomplish that with running, but the thing that we have to look at is burnout rate. When it comes to losing fat, the most important thing is consistency. Now, because we know that running is high impact, are you really going to be burning 500 calories a day from running? Because your body's gonna have to be recovering from that. So if I use the example of walking, walking is very low impact, number one. It's not gonna cause any type of inflammation or anything where you need to recover from it. And let's say, depending on, how overweight you are, running might not be the best thing when it comes to putting impact on your joints, such as your knees, your ankles, your lower back, etc. So in terms of being consistent with things, walking is the best thing that you can do because of the fact that it's low impact and there's no need for you to recover. So it is something that you can do every day. Every day we walk, every day we get our steps in. Now, tracking your steps is very simple. You can use your Apple Watch or Fitbit or even just one of your old school pedometers to track this. Now, because we already get a certain amount of steps in per day, this is something that's very easy for you to already start tracking. Instead of thinking, okay, I have to go out and I have to start running, why don't you just start tracking the total amount that you're getting on average per day? So when it comes to fat loss, the biggest key to your success is really consistency with the approach. So following a diet that you can stick with the longest and pairing that with walking to get your activity levels in, those two things in combination are going to be one of the best things that you can do when it comes to sticking with it. You're wondering, how can I implement this today and how can I get started? Well, here's the basic plan that I give the majority of my clients. Simply start by just tracking how many steps you get currently. So if you're not already tracking your step count, that's the first place that I suggest that you start. Start tracking. Let's say, for example, you find out that on average, you're getting about 3,000 to 4,000 steps per day. If that's exactly where you're starting, then see at what point in your day can you go out to just get the remainder of your steps in. Maybe you go out for a nice walk at night when things start to cool down, or if you live in a place where it's really cold, maybe you get it in at lunchtime or in the morning. But the main thing is just find a place in the day where you can consistently get it in. Now, there's no real right time or wrong time to this whole thing, so don't think that one time is better than the other. If on one day you have to go at night and then the other day you go in the morning, it's not like it's going to change things. So the main thing is just that you get your steps in, right? So if we look at that 10,000 calorie, or if we look at that 10,000 step goal, not 10,000 calories, but if we look at that 10,000 step goal, then just make sure that you're getting that every single day. Now, you might be asking, okay, well, why 10,000 steps? What's so magical about 10,000 steps? Well, the way that I like to break it down and explain it to clients is 10,000 steps, like we said earlier, is roughly 500 calories. And 500 calories times 7 days out of the week, is 3,500. And 1 pound of fat is roughly, give or take, 3,500 calories that need to be burned. So if you're consistently burning 3,500 calories per week just from walking, in theory, you should be burning at least 1 pound of fat per week. So let's go over some of the reasons why you might not be losing weight. Let's say, for example, you start implementing this and all of a sudden the scale does not change. Well, before we go into this topic, I've already made a video for you on this. So if you just go ahead and click that link above, I believe it's somewhere up there, right? Click that and watch that video first before you start posting comments about I'm dieting or I'm doing all this stuff, but the scale is not changing, right? So that video will go ahead and solve that problem for you if that's something that you run into, or if it later down the road it's something you run into. So now what happens if you start tracking your steps and you realize, hey, I'm already getting 9,000, 10,000 plus steps per day. What do I need to do? Well, let's say, for example, that is the case, that you're already hitting a high step count. What do I suggest then? Well, just simply add on a little bit more, right? So if you're already getting your steps in because you're just an active person or you're very active at work, maybe you do need to go out of your way just a little bit to get a brisk walk in. So let's say you try aiming for an extra 5,000 steps outside of your normal routine. Now, unless you're already walking on a regular basis, you're already going out for a brisk walk, you walk your dogs, you're already a very active person, well, then what I suggest in that scenario is to just focus a little bit more on your diet, because then in your scenario, dieting is not the domino that you have to tackle. More than likely, if you're not losing weight, yes, you are getting a high activity count outside the gym and outside the kitchen, but the problem is probably coming down to food if you're still not experiencing the type of weight loss that you want. Now, here's a little bonus for you guys. Let's say, for example, you're wondering, okay, you said I don't need to do any type of cardio, I don't need to do any of that stuff. What happens if I hit my step count? Can I still do my cardio on top of that? And the answer is yes. Look, so the way that I look at it is your steps are your steps. Your cardio is your cardio. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, why is walking so effective? When it comes to walking, one of the things that we have to think about is in terms of what type of energy it's burning. Now, no matter what type of activity you do, you will be burning calories. Now, a lot of people will be debating on, okay, well, are those calories coming from fat or are they coming from carbohydrates? In my mind, when I try telling this to clients, it doesn't necessarily matter. If you're not eating carbs and you start working out, your body's primarily going to be burning fat for fuel. It's not that that is superior to burning carbs, it's just that because carbs aren't present, your body has now become more efficient at burning fat for fuel. On the other hand, if fats were low and your body was consuming you were consuming carbohydrates, then obviously you're going to be burning more carbohydrates regardless of activity. Now, there is some question on whether or not walking solely burns fat versus something like running, and this is a different type of topic. We have two different types of energy metabolism, and there's more than that, but let's look at the two main ones. We have something known as beta oxidation, which is primarily where fats are going to be burned for fuel. The last one we have the Krebs cycle, which is pretty much going to be where the majority of carbohydrates are burned, turned into glucose so that your body has the energy necessary. And when we look at walking, it's not intense enough for the body to need to burn those carbohydrates to get that glucose in the bloodstream and ready to go for the activity. Whereas on the other hand, because running or high intensity activity is very quick, the body needs that energy ASAP like that. So when it comes to walking, yes, you will be burning more fat in terms of the calories burned, but there's something that's even greater than this. There's a lot of research out there that shows that the more activity that you do, the potential for you to be hungry later in the day is higher. So if you go out for a 2-hour run in the morning, right? Let's say you're like, hey, I'm gonna get 5 miles in, or I'm gonna get 10 miles in. I don't know, let's say, you're crazy like that. Well, even though you may have burned an insane amount of calories because of that type of activity, your body's going to try to make up for that by increasing hunger hormones so that you're more likely to make up those calories that were burned later in the day. So if you've ran into that problem before where you're an extremely active person, but then you just seem to eat your calories back like you didn't end up doing anything, well, that's why you're going to really enjoy walking, because walking is not intense enough for your body to have to produce all those extra hunger hormones where you want to go and binge later in the day. In fact, on top of all of that, walking has actually been shown to be a form of meditation. It can not only help with decreasing stress, but it can also help with things such as digestion and overall mood and energy levels. So walking has so many benefits. The benefits of walking we'll save for a later video. So if you guys like this content and you want to be updated on when that future video is going to drop, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and also hit the bell icon so you can turn notifications on so that you get an update on when these videos drop. If you enjoy this content and you enjoyed this video, and if it gave you something that you feel like you can start doing to help lose fat and start getting back on track, then just make sure to hit that like button and let me know in the comments below if this is something that you've tried or if it's something that you want to start implementing. So that's all for today's video. Stay strong, and I'll see you guys next time.